All right, let me just go back to this idea of moderate Republicans. And the reason why I'm fascinated by that is that anecdotally, just in talking to moderate Republicans in my life, which is, I have to admit, fairly a narrow experience for me. But that right now in particular, and I'm curious as to when you did this research, right now, and I imagine there's been a sort of a continuum here too to this point. I don't know if there is a more sort of, I don't want to say confused, but a more vulnerable profile of a voter that must be out there because everything they thought about the Republican Party, right? I mean, we see this on a daily basis in the political press. You see moderate Republicans saying, I can't believe this is actually the party I've been a part of, or this is I am now finally seeing the real. I mean, I track this for a living. I'm seeing multiple headlines that say like, Democrats were right, the left was right. That this is a very vulnerable group that I imagine is out there looking for. And we've had there's been a lot written over the past 5 or 10 years about the failure of institutions that provide sort of leadership, whether it's the church or whether it's politicians or whether it's other institutions that we look to as guideposts. In the Republican Party, the establishment has failed to provide is no longer the signifier. I would imagine this is a group of people, at least in the context of politics right now, who are looking around like, I need some neutral source where I can have confidence in. I mean, is it possible that impacts it too? That today it's moderate Republicans, but sometime in the future it's some other group that feels particularly unmoored from the traditional signifiers in their life.
Well, as I say, this is something that we're just beginning to look at closely. And, this could apply to more than just moderate Republicans.
Right.
It could be that people with moderate views, those are, let's say thinking people. That's in a way what moderate means. You think about things. You're not strongly committed to, one position from which you will never move. So, yeah, it could be that moderates in general and moderate Republicans in particular, they're the key to a lot of things that are going to happen because they really are looking around for anchors. They're looking for answers. And again, what we have found is one of the places that they look and where they're very easy to move, to shift is search rankings.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm asking, maybe I need to clarify what you mean by moderate Republicans.
Sure.
Because, I guess that could be interpreted in a number of different ways. I mean, my sense is that moderate Republicans are just as wed to their belief system as like a, sort of a left winger, I think I might be characterized, is to mine. It's just that, because they're Republicans, they're also sort of have a sort of a partisan, well, not a partisan, but a cultural identifier, right? A Republican. And so that part, it seems to me, not their belief system. Their belief system's probably the same as it was, 2 years ago. We should have low taxes, let's say, and we should have smaller government or whatever it is, but socially liberal. Whatever that belief system was is probably the same. But the signifier that they used to use, the institution that they would look to say, hey, this is the guy who we decide, who we think, this is the slate that we put forward, our nominating slate, if you will. And this is the one you should subscribe to because you are self-identified as a Republican. But that whole process has been messed up. I mean, that's why I'm saying in terms of Republicans, it's interesting because that is not existing in any other, if you're a hardcore conservative, and, you're getting a lot of, you have a lot of signifiers out there that are actually gaining strength. And frankly, the same if you're, you know, and the establishment Democrats or moderate Democrats, I think there's no undercutting of what they perceive as the sort of classic voices of authority or reason. And even on the left of the Democratic Party, there's a set of you know, sort of signifiers that still have some sway, but moderate Republicans are the ones who seem to be going through like a cognitive dissonance right now that I would imagine would make them susceptible. You know, like you know, I remember like if I dressed a certain way as when I was in my early 20s, I could be guaranteed of being approached by someone from Dianetics because there was something I was sending out that suggested like I'm a little bit lost right now. Does that make any sense?
I think you have some very good insights there. You know, I mean, obviously, I'm focused on, you know, one particular kind of research,
right.
And so, you know, no, I think you have some very good insights.
All right. Well, so let me ask you this: what was when you had different sources of news? I mean, you know, I mean, I think I have a sense of this because I've read the piece, but explain to people why this one thing, search engines, is different than like even maybe 20 years ago when we had 3 network news, and you know there was 3 or maybe 30 years ago now. You know, Walter, what's different between Google and Walter Cronkite, let's say?
Well, they actually have something in common because Walter Cronkite, you know, this was an era when news was in the hands of a very, very small number of people, and Walter Cronkite was the man who was, you know, trusted by, you know, tens of millions of people. Very, you know, he was never caught up in any scandals or anything, and he was, you know, he had a fatherly way about him, and there was a high level of trust there. And you know, now people have that level of trust, you know, to the nth degree for Google. We've learned about one aspect of it that's quite interesting. One of the reasons why we have the trust is, of course, you know, for all intents and purposes, there's no real competitor. I mean, you know, Google handles most of our search, and they do it really, really well, better than, you know, anyone else does. But there's another part of it, it turns out, that's quite interesting. There's a kind of operant conditioning aspect to what's happening here. We're in a way, we're like rats in a Skinner box, because most of the searches that we conduct are just routine searches. They're just things like, what's the capital of, you know, Uganda? I mean, they're very simple searches. That's, you know, more than 90% of our searches, more than 95% are really that kind of search. You know, what's playing at the movie theater and things like that. So when we do routine searches, simple searches, the result, the answer to our question always turns up at the top of the list, and it turns up instantly. It's like magic. So we are trained over and over and over again, day after day, to believe what's higher is better, what's higher is truer. And then the day comes, finally, when we actually want to research something that we're really not sure about, and, you know, where we're really trying to make up our minds, and that conditioning kicks in because we're going to focus mainly on, you know, what's near the top, and whatever is at the top we're going to trust the most. And we've actually studied this, you know, in an experiment to show that when you break trust with people, you know, and you teach them that rule doesn't always work, now they're more likely to look at lower ranked items. But, you know, that conditioning is so powerful. So there's never been this is called a list effect. And there's never been a list effect like Seeing, because it's supported by a daily regimen of conditioning that never stops.
That's fascinating. It's like the owner of the dog. Every time he snaps his fingers, he gives a treat, and then he can get away with one time every now and then where no treat.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, that's how they get us to get into the car to go see the vet, I guess. All right. But here's the part at the end, which is, I got to say, is a little scary. And just in general, I mean, I'm you know, full disclosure, I'm a little more scared of Donald Trump. But at the end of your piece, you tell us about specifically about Google, that there seems to be one candidate that or one campaign, I should say, that was that seems to have some savvy about this. Just briefly tell us, this is not this is relevant for the broader story, but the Clinton campaign seems to, at least to the extent that we're talking about Google, and this is really about Google when we say 80% of all searches in this country, they're on top of it, as it were.
Well, that's one way to put it. Another way to put it is that there's, as someone told me the other day, there's a kind of blurry line between Google as a company and some candidates and some parts of our government. Kind of very blurry line these days. I mean, 6 federal agencies are now headed by former Google executives. Obama's chief technology officer, former Google executive. Hillary Clinton's chief technology officer, hired a few months ago away from Google. The head of Google bankrolled last year a semi-secret company called The Groundwork. Look it up. It is cool to try to find out about it because you can find out nothing.
I did that. Let me ask you this. I mean, you're a clinical psychiatrist. When I click on The Groundwork, it takes me to a page that is unclickable with this sort of like scary, almost like Illuminati-like symbol.
Yes.
And it's unclickable. There is no explanation as to what this is at all. What are they doing there? Are they trying to, are they purposely trying to get, because this is by Schmidt, right? This company is the former CEO of Google. And this is apparently they are the groundwork.com is one of the biggest vendors, or I should say their biggest client is the Clinton campaign. When somebody does something like this, are they just messing with us? I mean, are they trolling? Why would they make it so opaque and so
they're not just messing with us, okay? I know too much, to be honest with you. And they're not just messing with us, they're laughing at us. They are laughing. And so I encourage people to go and look at that scary webpage. Because they are laughing at us. That company was set up by Eric Schmidt for the sole purpose of putting Hillary Clinton in office. I happen to like Hillary Clinton. I think she'd be a fine president, but I also believe in the free and fair election. And we no longer have a free and fair election. We calculate that Google will be able to shift between 2.6 and 10.4 million votes in November to Mrs. Clinton without anyone knowing that this is occurring and without leaving a paper trail.
Now let me ask you this.
That's not democracy.
When you do that analysis, how do you determine that? And what if okay, with our awareness of this dynamic, what should, because I went and I Googled in preparation for our talk, I Googled Hillary Clinton, I Googled Bernie Sanders to see if I could see anything discernible. And when I do that with Hillary Clinton, let's say, I get just basically, fairly vanilla style. I get the in the news is at the top of the page. And, I guess, Clinton-Trump race wouldn't even be close, is what I get. I mean, is that basically what I'm looking for, is like what those headlines are? Because then I get HillaryClinton.com and then Hillary Clinton on Twitter.
No. Because first of all, unless you're using a proxy or you're using Tor, remember that your search results you see are customized for you. Google knows who you are. So they're going to show you, whatever they think you want to see.
When I do Bernie Sanders, how Bernie Sanders could win the nomination. You may be right about that.
Yeah. Well, so what I'm saying is that, it's hard to know what they're sending out to whom, because they're sending out customized rankings based on, in-depth profiles they have about every person.
All right. So if I go in there with an anonymizer, let's say, or I use Tor, will I see positive stuff about Clinton?
No, you could see anything, because then you're seeing their generic output. and in their generic output, they're not going to necessarily, show any obvious bias. And by the way, remember that the bias is very hard to see anyway. Even when my staff gives me search rankings that have been prepared for an experiment where I know there's bias, I, generally speaking, cannot see it. The only way you detect the bias is you actually have to click on the items and let's start to look at the web pages. And it's very easy to mask this. I mean, we've masked it so that 100% of the participants in our experiments are completely unaware of any bias.
Wow.
So it's they have incredible control, not just over opinions and how they want to shift opinions, but whether or not they want you to see the manipulation. And it's very, very simple to mask this manipulation, so you cannot see it.
So if I wanted to do some real-world sleuthing, I would have to call up my sort of moderate Republican friends, let's say, and who are, sort of undecided, they're not sure what they're going to do, and say, Google Hillary Clinton, tell me what the top 2 hits are, click through and tell me what you find.
Yes, you'd have to do that kind of thing. And, of course, this is what, the FBI and the NSA do when they're, doing Internet research, is they actually they set up lots and lots of different fake people. They call them sock puppets. Now, fake people, of course, Google can detect also, so that, the sock puppets are not necessarily the best way to get at this. But yes, you're right. You'd have to go and survey your friends who have different political positions, and you'd have to get them to, search on things and click on things. And, it would be a big, big operation to try to do this. This is, as I say, it's a new world. It's a new world of influence, and whatever it is that you and I might think we figured out, believe me, there are pretty smart people at this company, and they figured these things out years ago, and they're way ahead of us.
Now, the last question I have to ask you while I have you on the phone. Let's say, hypothetically, I wanted to promote a podcast, radio show. How would I go about doing that?
How would you promote it?
Yeah.
Well, you mean.
I'm talking about my own.
You mean in search rankings?
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Well, SEO is a real thing, and there are companies that can help you with that. There are link builders in the Philippines you can hire for dirt cheap, and they kind of are always trying to outfox Google's algorithm, and they can push you up higher. You have to get up on that first page. That's or you don't even exist.
Indeed.
So it can be done. SEO is real, and SEO, believe it or not, doesn't really bother me because SEO is a competitive process.
Right.
Candidate A can use it, candidate B can use it, and they're competing just like they're competing with billboards and commercials. What bothers me is where there is no competition, and that is where the search engine company itself is making things happen, and you have no way to correct for what they're doing.
Dr. Robert Epstein, the piece is The New Mind Control. It is a preview of your forthcoming book. It is available at Aon. We will link to it at majority.fm. Really fascinating and disturbing stuff. I appreciate your coming on to talk to us about it.
Thank you, Sam. It's a fabulous interview. I really appreciate it.
Bye-bye. Hi, I'm Sam Seder, and this is an Ann Coulter doll.
You should not be immigrating here. Yeah. Stay in your country and hate us.
For smart progressive talk and a little bit of this and even a little bit of that.
Mission accomplished.
Subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and like us on Facebook to get some of our best video clips.